Welcome, listeners, to the Gaius Libertatis project. This is my very first episode, my introduction episode. The plan is to first tell you a bit about myself, then explain the direction I'm looking to take with this podcast, and why I believe Gaius Libertatis can fill a niche that has not yet been covered. Now, since I am completely new, I hope you would forgive me for having it all a bit rough around the edges. I believe the best way for me to go is to start getting my work out there, the minimum viable product, and then improve from there. And with your help, I hope I can keep climbing higher. Now, first a bit about myself. My name is Thijs van der Linde, which may be a tricky name for my foreign listeners, and I was born and raised in the Netherlands. Now, for those of you not familiar with the country, it might be interesting to provide a bit of background. The Netherlands is a country of about 17 million people, located right at the delta of several large European rivers, and with an Atlantic coastline. Now, without going into too much detail on Dutch history, which I may do in later episodes, it can largely be said that since World War II, we have been following in the footsteps of larger European trends. Politically, that would mean a very large, substantial expansion of the welfare state, more and more delegation of powers to a quasi-federal European Union, and a dependence on the US in foreign policy ever since colonialism started to crumble. In fact, in summary, it can be said that collectivism has in fact been embraced wholesale by the society. In the case of the Netherlands, I think there's a significant cultural strain that is best reflected in the following saying: Niet je hoofd boven het maaiveld uitsteken, which means something like don't stand out too much. Now, I'm not saying this to rag on my country, of course, only to provide somewhat of a decor for where I came from and where I'm looking to go. As I think most Dutch people is similar to most Dutch people, I came from sort of center-left background. I believed most of the standard progressive tenets, and I never really questioned them, I suppose. Only later in secondary school I really started to dive deep into social and political issues. Although the exact beginning is a bit blurry, I do distinctly remember coming across Ron Paul videos and then becoming absolutely addicted to reading from the Mises Institute and FEE websites, which, by the way, can be found at mises.org and fee.org, but my listeners might already be familiar. Some of my listeners might be familiar with that already. So, in a nutshell, that is how I went from the center-lefty I used to be to the voluntarist libertarian I am today. But now for the meat of the matter. What is the goal with Gaius Libertatis? How did I come from a passive consumer of libertarian content to deciding to create my own? And why the name? I think the name really explains quite a bit once you know what it stands for. Gaius refers to a celebrated Roman jurist whose work was written somewhere between 130 and 180 AD. His work, now known as the Institutes of Gaius, is a comprehensive treatise on the foundational principles of Roman law, the way in which he orders the law, first the law of persons, the law of things, of wills, and then actions, procedural, still has relevance for today, because the civil code of my country is still structured in a very similar way, and because Roman law inspired the Code of Napoleon, which inspired the civil law of all of continental Europe. The content of the law of that legal system itself also has a profound impact on the law right now in continental Europe. It might be instructive to compare him to Rothbard. What man, economy, and state was for Austrian economics, it can be said that Institutes of Gaius were for Roman law. Now, I chose his name for two reasons. The first is that I have the ambition to contribute to the creation of a very similar kind of treatise for the libertarian principles of natural law. not just the general outlines that have already been written by many authors, but to use my legal training, my legal education, to really dive into the details. In fact, I am planning to go through the books of my studies to really dive deep into the positive law and how it applies to libertarian theory as well. The second reason is that it reflects my curiosity and fascination with Greco-Roman culture, and how, through its impact on the Enlightenment, forms the foundation of everything that makes Western civilization great, in my opinion. I hope to explore many different facets of scholarship of the classics, and help connect them with the world we live in today. For instance, Stoicism is one of the things I've been diving into the last few months, and that could, for example, be a very good, rich subject for discussion. Now, I guess the second part of the name is a bit more obvious. Libertatis is Latin for liberty, which clearly refers to my libertarian angle at approaching things. To describe my ambitions with this project, my tagline is Liberty, Law, Current Events and More. This means I look to explore libertarian issues from a legal perspective and legal issues from a libertarian perspective. I also think I can offer some unique insight on current events by looking at both Dutch news and international news and releasing my perspective on it. On this front, I am also interested in hosting interviews and maybe debates, so you, my audience, and I can learn from a combination of perspectives that we may not have heard before. And more is my open field, where I may write and record about personal development, culture, or anything I consider interesting at that particular time. Now the way in which I plan to produce my content. Ambition number 1 is to release at least one podcast per week, for which I strive to learn all of the necessary technical aspects with Audacity, Libsyn, etc. All of the ways in which a podcast is promoted is spread around. Ambition number 2 is to blog on a very regular basis, at least once a week, because I would estimate that blogging is quite a bit easier technically, so I would be able to produce more content on a regular basis. I plan on using Steemit as my home base for my blogging operation, because I'm really excited about the potential of the platform, and because it provides a unique opportunity to monetize posts without direct donations or being overly dependent on advertising. Now, to close off this introduction. First, I will describe all the platforms where you can find me if you would like to, and get in touch. And next, the platforms where you can support the project if you're feeling particularly generous. I'm currently on Facebook at fb.me/GaiusLib, Twitter at capital G, capital L, Libertatis. So Libertatis with a capital L. Steemit at Thijs van der Linde. And I have an email account that's specific to my project at gaiuslibertatis@gmail.com. As well as my website, which is at gaiuslib.com. If you're not exactly sure of how to spell these things from the way I pronounce them, no problem. All of the links will be in my show notes page if you're interested. I would absolutely love to receive feedback, both positive feedback and constructive criticism, so I can keep growing Gaius Libertatis and make it better every time. I'm also open to all kinds of requests. So, for example, me interviewing you, you interviewing me, debates, discussions, etc. I would love to hear from you. So, if you think this sounds interesting, feel free to reach out. Now for financial support. If you're willing to support my project with your hard-earned money, you're really officially awesome. I have a Patreon account at patreon.com/GaiusLib. a PayPal account at paypal.me/Thijs van Linde, and several cryptocurrency addresses through which you can also support me. All of these will also be found in my show notes page. You can also support me by upvoting me on Steemit and DTube, and I may seek further income sources in the future, like affiliate links for products I personally endorse, or something else. But I haven't quite decided what I will do yet. That I will leave for a later date. So if you would like to support me for any of those options, I would be very grateful. And you will hopefully become part of a very exciting new project. Thank you for listening, and until next time.